I'm Dennis Anderson along with Julie Zenner, and here's what's coming up on Almanac North.
We'll talk about innovative work being done in the Twin Ports to help close the opportunity gap for children growing up in poverty.
That work is garnering national attention beginning this week in a special 4-part TV series. We'll bring you a preview of Our Kids Narrowing the Opportunity Gap.
And we'll have a look at the week's business headlines from Business North.
It's a special edition of Almanac North coming up right now. Hello again and welcome to Almanac North. Thank you very much for watching. This week's show was taped on Wednesday, so the WDSE crew can prepare for this weekend's symphony broadcast. More on that later, but now here is Julie with our guests.
All right, thanks, Denny, and welcome everyone. You may have heard of the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation's efforts to narrow the opportunity gap for young people in our area growing up in poverty. The initiative is going to have a much higher profile in the coming weeks as a special 4-part national TV series features the Twin Ports in one of its episodes. Joining us now are some of the partners in that local effort. Holly Sampson is the president and CEO of the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation. Kevin Skwira-Brown works on the Denfeld-based School Equity Initiative, and Karen St. George is the Director of Programs at Community Action Duluth. And welcome, thank you to all of you for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Holly, maybe you could start with just a quick primer on what is the opportunity gap? What does it look like?
Yeah, so the opportunity gap is really something that affects every single city across the United States. It's a serious problem, and it's really been documented by people like Dr. Robert Putnam in his book, Our Kids, the American Dream in Crisis. There's a lot of national documentation now on what really a growing gap over the last several decades for young people who are growing up in lower income households versus young people are growing up in higher income households. So we're talking about all sorts of different opportunities. One, that's really important in our region is extracurricular activities, for example. If you look over the last several decades, the participation for young people in lower income households is really declined, while the participation for higher income households has grown over those several years.
Mm-hmm. And we just had a graphic up that kind of showed the difference in the poverty levels between the Twin Ports and other parts of the state and the nation. And maybe we could get that back up again and you could speak to that a little bit in terms of how we're doing compared to other places.
We are very concerned at the Community Foundation when you look at poverty levels for children. So in Duluth, for example, we're looking at 22% of families with children are experiencing poverty every day. That compares to 12% across the state of Minnesota and 18% nationally. If we look at Superior, Wisconsin, it's 26%, again 15% across the state of Wisconsin, and again 18% nationally. So, not only are we exceeding state and national levels, but it's also grown over time. The graph shows, if you look over the last 15 years, there's been a considerable growth in the number of families who are experiencing poverty.
And Karen, what is the Duluth Superior Community Foundation, and what is it doing to narrow that opportunity gap?
They're a wonderful funder and community, I think of as action agency that you create action. Community Action Duluth has benefited from several grants that has helped us help children and families get access to more of the community. I would speak more to how impossible it is in Duluth for someone without a car to get their kids to daycare, get to their job. pick their kids back up, take the older kids to any kind of community activity. There just isn't enough hours in the day if you have to rely on bus service.
So are you an organization then that is constantly raising funds to help the less privileged
Yes.
to be able to take part in a variety of different activities?
Yes, it's the mission of Community Action Duluth to raise people out of poverty with a focus on low income and people of color. And we're part of a much larger organization, Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation, efforts to be successful in helping families.
Now we do have a clip from the PBS program that's going to be on starting this week, and let's just watch that, and then Kevin, I'd like to have you respond to it.
Sure.
How we truly fund our schools. Are we looking at equal or are we looking at equitable?
There is a big difference between equal and equitable. Kevin explains.
An equality model says we'll give all the students, all the school communities, fundamentally the same resources per pupil. That's an equality model. An equity model, the equity approach, the equity lens, says we need to apply resources to meet needs.
In comparing equality with equity, we must keep in mind that the needs Westie kids bring to school are simply greater than their affluent Eastie counterparts.
An equality system just perpetuates disparities. If you start unequal and you give both people the same, you maintain the inequality. And so equity is about making up for past systems of inequality.
So when you ask what's the importance, it's the foundation of what we need to be looking at and aware of when we're providing opportunities and trying to educate our students. Equity is everything.
So Kevin, you're going to be making your national TV debut coming up, speaking about the issue of equity versus equality. But how do you see that actually playing out here in the Twin Ports and the people that you're working with in the schools?
Sure. So I'm a parent. That's my role in the schools, is really as a parent. And I see that playing out in all kinds of decisions. So Holly talked about getting to extracurriculars, and we heard about transportation. Our 0 hour in our high schools is, if you can get there, you can attend 0 hour. So kids who can get themselves, or families who can get their kids to 0 hour, get to take that extra partial credit per day, per year. And so they get more opportunities then to get something filled in 0 hour and get more opportunities to take a different class later in the day. So equity is about, that's systemic, right? The school district didn't make families poor, but in response to inequality, we haven't figured out how to get all the kids to school for 0 hour, and we still offer it. That's one of those examples. The Comp Ed funding, which is sort of really where the Community-Based School Equity Initiative sort of originated out of, was, really we recognized some of the inequality east-west, and when the folks came to do the filming, they focused a bit on sort of CIATS classes, AP classes, and really that's not where we have spent most of our energy. It's really been on this compensatory education funding.
So Kevin, how then does the public schools budget process have an effect on equity?
Well, prior to last year, when the school board passed a pretty revolutionary resolution to require the district to align achievement gap funding, Comp Ed funding, with the schools that generated it, it had been used, it really had been taken from our western schools, our higher poverty schools, to lower class sizes. The school board said not doing that anymore. So significantly, they pushed that back the other way, so that in this last year, our schools that have the greater degree of poverty in them have done all kinds of fantastic things to address the opportunity gap, the achievement gap.
Now, Holly, a while back, the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation received a significant grant to help close that opportunity gap. How's that money being spent? And what are some areas in which you see progress being made?
That's a great question, Julie, and two of my partners are here right now that we can hear about some amazing innovative programs that are taking place. There are several others that I'd love to highlight. One, we mentioned the education system in Duluth, so Lincoln Park Middle School put together an amazing program that has also received national recognition. So we funded a parent-teacher home visit program where the teachers are building relationships with the parents of students who attend Lincoln Park. And they actually do home visits and get to know each other and build that relationship. And that was actually recognized by the American Federation of Teachers. The president came out to visit and actually go on a home visit. They did a video, and that video of that Lincoln Park program that we funded is also now appearing all over the country by the American Federation of Teachers. Over in the Family Forum program over in Superior, they actually are part of the Head Start program. And we funded there a parent coach that, Head Start isn't just about teaching kids anymore. It's about also involving the parents in the education. And so because of our funding and the value and the effectiveness, I've actually talked to some of their clients who have experienced that coaching, and they are so grateful for that. So Family Forum was actually able to secure 2 additional coaches with Head Start funding because they could document the differences in people's lives that they had made with that coach. We look at another collaboration with Lifehouse and Project SOAR. They've focused their funding on homeless youth who are not in school and not working. And over a 2-year period, they were able to secure jobs for 84 of those kids in Duluth. I mean, all of those are just, these are amazing success stories, and we're so proud of really amazing partners that are just doing amazing work.
Well, maybe we can get some stories about what your organizations are doing too with the funding that you're receiving.
Sure. At Community Action Duluth, we focused on transportation issues. So we were able to do things like help families obtain bikes and helmets and instruction so they could start having leisure time being active, and often using those bikes to get to extracurricular activities, children's museum, the aquarium, where they wouldn't have time to do that if they had to rely on the bus or walking. We also have a program that helps parents reestablish their driver's license so that they can have that time savings of being able to drive their kids if they're fortunate enough to have a car. We also have a program that helps working families obtain reasonable car loans. So all of that mixes together to really support the children so that they have more time with their parents, more time with fun activities, and can function much like the families of higher means.
So Karen, how can people who are watching this broadcast get involved?
Well, that's a great question. We are going to have a program this summer called Mechanics That Mentor that helps people repair their bikes. So if out in the audience we have people that are expert or very handy with bikes, they could join in. We have a car donation program that at Community Action that we use then to provide cars to families that are in need, working families that are in need, and a variety of opportunities to help in our Adult Basic Education GED program, which also is centrally located at our agency in Lincoln Park Middle School, so that families without transportation can come there and continue on the road to get their GED or prepare to college.
Kevin, how do you see those funds helping with the folks that you're working with?
Sure. So the schools didn't necessarily receive money directly from the foundation, but that comp ed, that shift in that comp ed, so our 6 higher poverty schools, with that shift in that comp ed, we're able to do all kinds of amazing things. One of the schools, Lincoln Park, has an initiative where they're addressing out-of-school suspension and having just tremendous success. Not just keeping the kids in the school, but really kind of working on the dynamics that led to the suspension and helping them sort of reintegrate back into the classrooms. One of our elementary schools hired a social worker to make a connection with every child in the school by name, and then spends their day doing check-ins with kids who need additional support to kind of what's going on so that you can address those barriers that keep kids from being able to concentrate in the classroom. And finally, another one of our elementary schools is structuring that sort of recess time after lunch, because the kids have identified that that's a time when bullying happens. And so they've created structure to kind of provide really sort of positive ways for the kids to interact with each other in that sense. So in all of those schools that receive that money that they've been generating all along, they're doing things that help, address the achievement gap, address that opportunity, so those needs to help kids be attentive to their education.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're going to be seeing a part of the video coming up, but thank you all for sharing some of the great things that are happening in Duluth to close that opportunity gap, and I hope that the program helps advance the cause that you're working on.
And now more on this important subject. Beginning Friday night at 9, Our Kids, Narrowing the Opportunity Gap will air here on PBS North, Channel 8.1 and 31.1 on the Iron Range. The 4-part documentary series shines attention on the issue of poverty and how it acutely impacts our country's future. And it focuses on innovative work that is making an impact, including right here in the Twin Ports. Here now is a preview of the series.
I'm Robert Putnam, author and host of the new documentary series, Our Kids, based on my research chronicling the growing opportunity gap between rich and poor kids in our nation.
In a country as rich as America, that over 40 million people are living in poverty is despicable.
Our last resort would be sleeping in my car. That's not a proper place for a kid to grow up.
Someone's income doesn't determine their worth or their child's worth. We're all trying to raise our children. So whether you have a little bit more money than I do, we all want the best for our children.
When I come to school, people would make fun of me of how I looked or what I wear because it was so different of what they were wearing.
With me growing up, I had a hard time. My mom was always in and out of jail.
I wasn't even living at home. I was living with my grandparents. I didn't have a great relationship with my family.
I went to, I want to say at least, and I'm sure it was more, but I want to say at least 10 different foster homes.
Literally most of the time it's just yelling.
They would pretty much hit my little sister and make her sit in an ice cold shower because she would pee on herself, but she was still a kid,
These kids have seen more in their lifetime, sometimes 5 and 6 years old, than you and I have seen in our lifetime.
There's a group of people who believe that some young people just aren't born to do great things.
We're the poor kids and they're the rich kids.
We have isolated people into that's where the poor kids go. We're not going to send our kids to that high school anymore. We're going to pull out and our town's going to create our own school. I don't want my kids around those kids.
Should everybody have access to education, whether you're rich or poor? Like education's a basic human right, like water.
The way the system is designed and the way that it's functioning right now is my greatest sorrow.
All the inner city schools are like low funded, their test scores are low, and they're all people of color. And like the high performing schools are mainly white students.
These are kids who sit in rooms that would be struck down under basic slum condition.
The buildings themselves are falling apart. Teachers have complained of mice and rats in the buildings, of broken windows, lack of heat.
During the winter, they have to wear winter coats. They're shivering, they can see their breath, and it's too cold to study.
Because right now we have like an apartheid style education system. There's a track for poor kids, there's a track for rich kids.
I feel dumb and I feel like I was let down. Like
I didn't have that opportunity, so I felt left behind.
The promise that I think has been broken for our children, that's the promise of the American dream. The promise that it doesn't matter where you're born, as long as you work hard, you can reach whatever heights you want to. That's not true in America anymore. The kids that are born into the lowest income quintile have a very, very small chance. Most of them, over 60%, will stay in the bottom.
I always got told that I was going to turn out like my family. Even by other family members, I got told that I was going to turn out just like my mom and dad.
We'll just go to jail or make babies and be on welfare. That's the thought, and so that's how they treat us.
But if we don't empower them, the incarceration is going to continue. The recidivism is going to continue. The drug issues is going to continue. The teen pregnancy is going to continue. The overdose is going to continue. We're just going to have a society of young men and women that are lost.
These are still kids. These are kids with a future in front of them that isn't written.
I'm optimistic as individuals and communities are making a difference, creating bold, innovative approaches that offer new hope to the children and families society has forgotten.
I guess my goal is just to work in high poverty schools and do something creative and innovative to help break that cycle.
The Roberson School serves one of the poorest areas in Springfield, Missouri. Known as a wraparound school, it serves as a community hub, providing many basic social services to families in need.
It's kind of a blended thing with school and social work now.
They get to go up and hug people without anybody getting crabby. You have to be willing to accept hugs in here.
My family is from Kurdistan,
and I was born in China.
My parents are from Latin countries, Mexico and El Salvador.
Parents come from Cairo, Egypt.
And I am from Ethiopia, which is in Africa. And I was born in India, but I live in Nashville.
Valor Collegiate Academies is a network of free college prep charter middle schools in South Nashville that celebrate diversity.
Here at Valor, we usually have one partner for the whole year, and we use these hand signals. This is agreed, this is disagreed, and this is sending love.
Riverside detective Brian Money found a way to reach kids before they end up in the back of his patrol car.
Make sure your judo belts are on straight. To teach them judo, they have to make a commitment to school. They have to be doing well in school, and if they're not doing well, then we'll help them.
Mr. Money has made a tremendous difference in Anton's life, allowing him to be here. It's awesome. He has no idea how much he changed his life.
Keep going.
IGHT, ice, like and fight.
I wrote the program, Project Moving Forward, which is a program to accelerate language development.
Traditionally underserved poor and those with English as a second language eagerly engage in this accelerated learning path that celebrates their smartness.
Yeehaw! Kiss your brain, Smarty. And the future in front of them can be fantastic.
Sometimes it gets hard and they talk about, oh, you've been dealt with some very hard cards. I'm sorry. They always tell me you have to just focus on what you want and what you do to get there.
Every bit of my energy goes towards proving my family wrong and proving to them that I can do something that they had never even imagined, and that I can be whoever I want to be and as successful as I want to be without anyone having to tell me that I can.
They just gave me a lot of hope to be a different person, and that's what I'm really trying to do.
Yeah, it is. It's overwhelming.
It's overwhelming because you see where they came from, and they just needed someone to believe in them and give them a chance.
The public media in America have a unique opportunity to play a role, not in telling Americans what they should do, but in showing Americans what other Americans are already doing to try to narrow the opportunity gap.
What do you say? It's gonna be a happy day.
It's time now for the business news from the editors at Business North. Governor Tim Walz on Monday said his administration has renewed its challenge of the Enbridge Line 3 project. His decision came after the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission voted for a third time last month to support constructing the oil pipeline across northern Minnesota. The matter had been appealed by the Minnesota Department of Commerce under then Governor Mark Dayton. Governor Walz's office has not issued a formal statement to explain his decision, but according to Minneapolis-St. Paul media, he said it's important for the appeal to play out.
Essentia Health is hosting 2 meetings this week to discuss its vision for an $800 million revamp of its Duluth medical campus. Over the next 3 years, Essentia will build a replacement hospital tower, clinic space, and surgical suites along 4th Avenue East from East Superior Street to East 2nd Street. The architectural firm Ewing Cole and the project's construction manager McGo Construction had people on hand to answer questions about neighborhood impact. For more on these and other stories, visit businessnorth.com.
Now, if you have a comment on our show, call now, dial 218-788-2849 to leave a message, or send an email to almanacnorth@wdsc.org, and visit the WDSC website for our program schedules, news and updates about the station, and upcoming special events. And Julie, be sure to tune in to WDSC's broadcast of the Duluth Superior Symphony Saturday night at 7 o'clock.
Well, it's always fun to watch it live, and it's also fun to see everybody so close up on TV, so I hope everybody enjoys it.
They do a beautiful job, that's for sure. For Julie and the team at Almanac North, I'm Dennis Anderson. Have a great weekend. Good night, everybody, and be kind.